evening, everyone. Quite a packed room tonight and a packed agenda as well. We also have a couple of grads in here, so welcome. Hope you enjoy it. So the first item, as usual, is to confirm the minutes from the previous meeting. Can I take those as approved?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you. Apologies for absence. I haven't received any, and it doesn't look like there are any. So, are there any declarations of interest? Item 4, public participation. There is none. Item 5, consideration of any matter referred to the committee in relation to call-in. None. Item 6 is the action points from the previous meeting. So it's just the adventure playground. Again, that's still on us, and when the weather gets better, and the training has been rearranged, which is in red on the sheet. So I believe that is that in for this month? Next Monday. So agenda item 7, which is the Q3 quarterly budget monitoring report. Hand over to
Chair, can I just make a brief comment on this report? So I'm afraid the head of finance is unwell this evening, so has not been able to attend the meeting to present the report. So the report is here for the information committee and for noting. If there's any questions related to budgets that fall within the remit of the committee, the officers that are present will be happy to attempt to respond to them, or we can take them and provide written responses.
Thank you. So are there any questions that can potentially be answered now or to be emailed? No? Okay. Agenda item 8, which is the Q3 23.
Recommendations on that report.
Sorry, yeah, Dan, that's to take the report as noted.
Agreed.
Agenda item 8, the Q3 23-24 performance tenants voice report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yes, this is the latest version of our performance within the housing service, which also picks up the tenants voice piece. It is the Q3 report, and it's presented to you to consider. Within your pack, there are 3 different parts to the report. The first report is our in-phase report, which is a monthly report that captures the key performance indicators that we're measuring against across 4 areas, so asset management, housing ops, safe communities and safe homes. So that's for you to have a look at. There are a couple of reds highlighted, which we've got an action plan in place to deal with. The second report is our compliance report, which is reporting strongly, particularly around certification and inspections. And then lastly, you've got the tenant satisfaction measures, which is the tenant's voice piece. So that also picks up measuring alongside what our peers are doing. So you can see how we compare through what's called the Housemark report. So happy to take any questions on the report or any of those 3 reports.
Thank you. Any questions on this part of the agenda? Councillor Johnson.
I thought somebody would die. On page 24, you talk about, or the report talks about weekly drop-in sessions with Oswald's, which sounds like a good idea. I just wonder how well attended. I mean, it says they're well received. Are they well attended? I mean, I'm assuming there is some sort of, sorry, it's a rolling question now, isn't it? I'm assuming there's some sort of publicity to our tenants to let them know when we're.
Yeah, I mean, colleagues can chip in, but as far as I'm aware, they're well attended. Down in the forum in the reception area, we're getting walk-ins that come to meet them with issues and concerns that they want to raise. So there's a steady trickle. I don't know exact numbers, but it is being accessed, and it has been fruitful up until this point.
The events are publicised via social media to residents. A surveyor from the property services present on site along with Osborne operatives to support with any queries. I was actually here last Wednesday when individuals were attending, and at 9:15, 9:30 there were a good number queuing ready to meet with officers. So well attended so far.
No, that's good to hear. Thank you very much. Thank you.
On page 52, it says we were hoping to appoint two damp and mould surveyors. Have they been appointed, do you know? It said in January.
I'm going to defer.
Was it deferred?
Yes, I believe they have.
Yeah.
It's definite. Are they just yeah? Cool. Thank you. I just want to add that I've had a lot more positive response from residents over the past 6 months. I think it's really gone up, and I get them just coming to me to tell me they've had really good services. So that's definitely increased as well. So I think there's definitely a lot happening where tenants have felt more able to share their voice, and I think it's really good that they feel able and they're happy to share that officers and Osborne are doing a really good job. So it's lovely to hear. Are there any other questions, comments on this item? So agenda item 9 is the arts and culture.
Oh, sorry. I took me by surprise. No, it's right. Sorry, I thought it was another performance report. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. So before I introduce the items, if I could just take the opportunity to introduce the committee to Diana Houghton, who is our Head of Arts and Culture, who is in week 2. So I had made a rash promise to the Chair to also introduce you tonight to Chris Fennell, the Head of Communities and Leisure. And when I made that promise, I didn't realise he actually had pre-booked to leave. So I apologise for that. So in terms of the update reports, what I'm proposing is for the next committee to bring the sports and leisure update report. Chris is available for that meeting, so I'll introduce you to him with the sports and leisure aspect of the area of work at the next committee. So Cody, if you could just make a note of that for the forward plan. So apologies for that. So I'm aware that there's a very packed agenda tonight. So what I was proposing, Chair, is do a very brief introduction for the 2 arts and culture reports, take any questions and then do the same for the remaining 2 reports, if that's okay. So with regards to the general arts and culture report, very much as written, not too much just to add to that, other than you'll see we continue with a series of activity that's also very much linked to the wellbeing agenda from the arts and culture aspect. We had a very successful recycling event in the Marlows early winter, some art work in the couple of underpasses that we're looking to introduce. And continue to engage with colleagues at county and at county-wide level for the arts and culture activities and programme of events. Now Diana started, we will begin to scope out a arts and culture strategy. We haven't started to do that yet. I've mentioned to members before that once Diana had started, or the head of arts and culture, as I was referring to her as at the time, had started, we will begin that work, and of course we will be doing that in full consultation with stakeholders and through this committee as well. With regards to the Old Town Hall, much the same. You'll see the report follows a similar structure as before. Section 3, you'll note that the sales of tickets continues to increase with the activity, and already to date, as at February, over £20,000 worth of pre-ticket sales for 24-25. So the team at the theatre continuing to work on the programme of events up at the theatre. And we will be beginning, again, now that Diana's arrived, looking at the review that we had spoken about before in terms of the Old Town Hall activity. So other than that, I won't, it's all as in the report, so just any questions or comments the committee may have.
Any comments on this item? Councillor Banks?
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very nice to meet you, and thank you for the report. I've just got a couple of points that I would just like to raise. Colourful Minds, under section 222, sessions delivered 28, attendance 205. How does that, not 205 people turning up for 28 sessions? Sure.
In total.
So across the 28 sessions, there was a total of 205 attendances.
Oh, right, okay. So there might be
So
the same.
not 205 at each session.
Yeah. So I was just double
Yeah,
checking.
no, sorry, yeah.
So I mean, my vision in my head was that they were quite small groups, say 20, 25. So that's sort of multiplied by 28 gives you a sort of a, right, okay. So one of the things that I've raised with Annie before is some reservation around the fact that it's being held at the South Hill Centre. I'm hugely admire the work that the South Hill Centre does, but it's very central in Hemel Hempstead town. And I have asked before, and I would ask again, whether or not there's any intention to take the Colourful Minds programme out to the towns and villages and out to the wards. And our officers mindful of the fact that some people may well be deterred from going to the South Hill Centre because of its Christian connections. It's very much a faith centre. And if that is not your faith, you may not find it that easy to go into that building.
Yeah, noted. I think it was just a continuation of this particular programme. If we continue that into the new year, we'll certainly look at that. I think originally it was undertaken at South Hill because of the alignment with some of the other activity that happens within South Hill. But I'll take that up with Annie and Diana, and we'll look at that. Continue with the programme into 24-25.
I'm particularly concerned, for example, that the Muslim community would not think of going into a Christian-based centre.
Noted, yeah.
So they may be welcome as individuals, but not as a faith. So that was that point. And again, I hugely support the work that you do around that Colourful Minds project. I've seen it boots on the ground, and I know it's hugely valued by the participants. Just moving on then to the Old Town Hall. I beg your pardon, I didn't want to go there. Grove Hill Underpass, the Arts and Mural project, if I may, sorry, Chair, I have a number of questions. I know that County Councillor Clett White-Low has funded that project, but it's still not yet been delivered. And I just wonder if you have any idea. I know it's spring, summer, but that project has been running since last May, and it's still yet come to fruition. I'm still holding fundings for that. And I just wanted, I'm going to have to return it soon if it doesn't come through.
No, that's definitely progressing. I'm not sure what the hold up has been since last May, but I know Annie's working on progressing that. So that date is a current date that we're looking to have that undertaken.
Yeah, looking for being after Easter, so allowing for the weather to improve. But that's certainly
Can I just have that firmed up, because obviously I need to take that back to the county council. Old Town Hall, just a couple of points on that. That sort of crosses what you put in the report, and then later on the Old Town Hall report. So I'm not quite sure where my question fits. Some time ago, we had a review of the Old Town Hall that was undertaken by an external consultant. The feedback from that's never been presented to Scrutiny, and I note it's not included in this report. When will we expect an update?
Can I come back to you on that, because that was undertaken before I arrived? I don't want that to sound like I don't know it was before my time, but I'll need to ask about that if that's okay.
There were some fairly exciting suggestions coming forward from that consultancy, and I would be very keen to see where we're.
Yeah. I'd need to make sure that aligned with the direction of travel that we're now looking to move in, of course, and we'll take forward from that review what would still be relevant.
It just seems disappointing that we haven't had a formal feedback from that consultancy, is to say we're going in a different direction. And then just one other point, and I've actually lost my space, I do apologise. In here somewhere, I'm sure you have mentioned Everyone Active, I'm sure you have, and the outreach work that they do. Am I right? Is it in this report? I can't find it for looking. But I'm sure there was a
communities one.
And is it in the next one in communities?
You want me to leave it? The next one? Or are you taking these papers all together, Diane?
I was going to take the two arts and culture and then the two communities and leisure ones separately.
You hold it for a second.
Yeah.
If there are any more on the arts and culture side, Councillor Barradell and then Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Great to hear about the arts and culture strategy. Do you have an idea vaguely when we can expect to see a draft or that to go out to consultation or something, or like a timeline for the process?
We haven't scoped it out fully, but in my mind, the scoping and the brief for the works to begin the consultation will be the first quarter of the new year. And then we'll be doing the consultation second quarter, so that the strategy will go through the whole process over the course of the first 3 quarters of next year, I'm hoping.
Councillor Johnson.
I just wondered, actually, in light of what was said about the Grove Hill underpass, if we have a timescale for the Plough Wagon.
Yeah, yeah.
Councillor
Just a very quick one. It's interesting that you are supporting the local artists. I think that is the last bottom here. We read from time to time that we have a number of famous artists from Dakoro. Sometimes you see them on Britain Got Talent. Do you have like a program where you promote these artists so that the locals can know who they are?
Did you want me to start then? Yeah. So probably not as refined as we would like it to be, and that'll certainly be something that we're picking up under the new structure with the new staff. We do hold exhibitions at the Old Town Hall and do promotions for local artists through the Old Town Hall, but we'll be very much working to beef up that publicity and promotion of what we're doing over the coming months.
And I see the cultural strategy is very much looking at how the wider cultural sector can be supported. So that would include up and coming artists as well within that, to look at how we can support them.
You have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a quick. Thank you very much for your response. But I know that I think it's Romford Council, SS Council, where they actually promote their local artists in schools and colleges, and I think Essex has got a lot of artists coming up from there. If you do go ahead with this, perhaps it's something that you can encourage the borough to celebrate, because I know that we have quite a number of very famous artists here.
Yeah, I think as Diana said, a formal approach to that would very much be covered under the arts and culture strategy in terms of how we support and promote local artists would very much be picked up as part of that formally. Although, as you have mentioned, we do it as part of the day-to-day anyway, but we formally covered off in that strategy.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith-Wright, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much. It's my first time. So it sounds very exciting. There's nothing better than arts and culture on mental health, and I think it's really to be applauded that we're putting so much into this. As far as the villages go, will you be reaching out to them and engaging them, the schools, the community centres? So this is encompassing everyone, not just the towns.
It's very much a borough-wide strategy.
Right.
Okay. Or will very much be a borough-wide strategy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions on these agenda items. So did you want to take the next two together as well?
Yeah, I think if that's okay.
Perfect. So that will be, so I've just got to do it for the recording. Agenda item 10, the communities and leisure update.
Thank you. So again, not too much to add to the contents of the report. Just to make members aware that the health update element of the communities report is also being presented to the Health and Wellbeing Committee tomorrow as well. So we'll be running that update as a kind of like dual thing with the Health and Wellbeing Committee. So for information. Yeah, not too much at all to add to what's the contents of the report for this particular two items. Really, I won't take members' time repeating what's in the report.
Thank you. Any questions on this? I know Councillor Banks, you had a question on the everyone active part.
I actually think my questions are actually under item 10. Are we actually on item 10 now?
Yes.
Oh, we are, so sorry, Diane, I wasn't fully concentrating. Everyone active, there's a brief comment on the report regarding the outreach work that they do across our communities, and I would again like to congratulate officers that are involved in delivering that or in partnership with Everyone Active. I wonder at what point we might have a report from Everyone Active about the contract that we have with them.
So that will be part of the sports and leisure update that I'm proposing to bring to the next committee. Well,
Right, okay.
sorry, I should have clarified that when I mentioned that. It will include the Everyone Active contract within that report and statistics and data and things on that report.
Thank you very much. Grant funding, the community grant funding, sorry, the community grant. I wonder if you could just let me know how that is advertised, how people know that the community grant exists, because I'm surprised to see that there is an underspend.
So it's advertised through the website and through our voluntary sector partners. There is, again, if I'm honest, probably more we could do on that, and we're currently out to recruit to a vacant officer post within the communities team that will be picking up these community grants, and we will look at how we can more rigorously advertise and reach out, but we do that through the voluntary groups as well as on the website, so we do some promotion on that. We just need to think about why there hasn't been the applications. So there have been some applications that have been turned down because they haven't met the criteria, not many, but we have had a low application rate, particularly over the last two tranches. So we will look to work with our voluntary sector partners to seek their advice on how best to further promote to increase that take up. But we are also currently looking at some ideas on how we can provide some additional grants to use that underspend for this financial year.
So should members have a pet project up their sleeve that might be a bit short of funding, is it at all possible that the community grant may be available for that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly I can't make any guarantees on that, but if you wanted to email it to me, and then we could look at it in line with the criteria for the community grants, then speak to the portfolio holder about whether or not we can do something outside of the usual process. But depending on what it is and how much, and that we can consider it as a one-off.
One more, yeah. And I've got Councillor Pringle after Councillor Banks.
Just one more. My favourite subject. I noticed that there's been a award to Hemel Tamil Association. I'd be keen to know what that grant application was for.
Yeah, I don't know the details off the top of my head, but I'll come back to you on that.
Then I'll just put some context around that. I'm aware that the Hemel Tamil Association is a religious organisation, and I understand that cannot be funded through the community grant. So I'd be keen to know how.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that and come back to you. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just Googling Tamil. That would be our. I think there might be a question around is it a culture or a religion from just a quick. So yeah, if you can circulate when you've got, it might be that it isn't a religion. Councillor Pringle.
Yeah, really my questions follow on from Councillor Banks, because as coincidence would have it, I just advised someone yesterday to make an application and try and get it in within this financial year. So is that still possible if?
So the community grants applications aren't open. We only open them up as 3 or 4 tranches over the course of the year.
Yes.
But conscious that there is this sort of small underspend on the grants at the moment. So you can ask them to upload to the application, or if that isn't working because technically it's not open, again, if you want to email me the information, but as I said, I can't make any guarantees on that. But the next tranche of the community grants is open in May.
So it may be that it's a project, a community project that's starting, and it seems, in my view, to tick enough boxes. But it may be that they would want to make another application further down the line once it gets going. And I appreciate that you can't do it twice within the same financial year. So that's the thinking behind it.
Yeah. I understand, but yeah, like I said, I can't make any promises or guarantees.
Thanks very much. It's very useful.
Thank you. Councillor Leakey, but just before, I believe Tamil is the language, it's the culture, it's not a religion. Those that come from a Tamil community may have religions within their community. Councillor Adleaky.
Yeah, so sorry, still on this community grant. Is this the old program or is it a new program?
Well, it's certainly been in existence for longer than I've been here as a programme, so which I know is only a year. So I can't say how old it is, but it's been around for a while, I believe.
So it is the old program that I'm fully aware of. When you are having a look at this, please can you just be mindful that there are organizations here that seems to be receiving the grants every year, like the Pepe Foundation and the Drink Together. I think if you look at the history, there seems to be regular recipients of the grants. You know, I think there should be like a limit that if you receive this year, you have to wait another 2 or 3 years, and something like that. You know.
Okay, well, I could discuss that with portfolio holders to see if, what are the views on changing those criteria, but the applications that are approved are assessed by a cross-service panel and do have to meet the criteria of the scheme. So it would mean changing the parameters of the scheme for that, but I can raise it with portfolio holders.
Yeah, I think I've been part of the group that awarded, especially this Pepe Foundation about 2 or 3 times. So I think we should have a system whereby more people benefit from this kind of grants. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just in response to that, there aren't that many that don't get the grants, and if they don't get the grants, it's because they don't meet the criteria. We, as you can tell by the fact we've got an underspend, we're not oversubscribed, so that applications that are eligible under the criteria of the scheme are turned down at the moment. Can't say that won't always be the case, but at the moment we don't have eligible grants under the criteria that are turned down. Any that are turned down don't meet the scheme. But your point is taken, because that may not always be the case.
I'm also not sure we'd particularly maybe want to turn down a grant for a charity that raised money for hospice care for children. So perhaps that's not something, I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but I don't know if a portfolio holder would necessarily want to hear, let's stop giving the grants to children in hospice care. Any other questions on these items?
I just had one question for the portfolio holder. Can I make my question and take a written response?
Yeah.
I think it was the previous report. I do apologise. The 2 reports have merged for me. It's around the Healthy Hub. And I just wanted to ask the portfolio holder if she is fully supporting of the Healthy Hub going forward.
Ask her and she'll circulate. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll get that circulated if she supports that.
If I could just, because we're searching the report, I can't remember if I included it in there, but we have had funding from county approved for a further year for both the Healthy Hub and the Health Inequalities Officer, so that is now extended to March 2025.
Thank you. I just had a question on the adventure playgrounds. Just why is there not a tuck shop at every single one? Just a question, because we know kids like food. I just wondered if there was a specific.
Okay. Well, I'll come back on that, because I'm not sure. It may be that they did have one and that it wasn't actually used. But I'll find out.
Thank you. Any further questions on these items? We take those as noted, and also realise we didn't note the previous 2 as well. Noted. Thank you. Thank you. So agenda item 11 is the antisocial behaviour policy. Natasha.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Introducing to you a new antisocial behaviour policy. This is a revised policy, reflects the delivery of antisocial behaviour activity across both our community safety team and our tenancy enforcement team. The revised policy specifically focuses on new measures that have been implemented by the government's antisocial behaviour action plan and the antisocial behaviour tools and powers that are related to that action plan. The action plan was implemented in March 2023, which is in relation to ensuring that we're bringing strong benefits to victims of antisocial behaviour. And the plan's got a really strong focus and emphasis on prevention methods such as early education and ensuring that we take a robust approach to tackling persistent nuisance in relation to those impacts on our communities. In addition, the plan seeks to focus local authorities and our partner agencies in working to tackle 3 very specific areas: treating antisocial behaviour with the urgency it deserves, bringing in a hotspot policing target to the worst affected areas, taking a zero tolerance approach, and that also includes some focus around substance misuse, such as banning of nitrous oxide and expanding drug testing upon arrests, and also giving police and other agencies, including local authorities, increasing powers to act and restore pride in communities. So our revised policy takes account of those tools and powers, also takes account of social housing regulators' requirements in relation to tenant satisfaction measures, and introduces some revised target times for our officers to engage with residents in relation to antisocial behaviour reports. And you'll also see the report and the policies before you present a risk assessment matrix which outlines our approach to assessing and categorising each report. Hopefully members have had the opportunity to read those reports and policies, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions on this agenda item? Councillor Penn?
Yeah, I've read this with interest, and thank you both for this. A lot of my problems revolve around antisocial behaviour, in particular between neighbours. And I know certain cases where officers have been to see one of the pair of neighbours. Do we still have a sort of a mediation service where the 2 families, or however many families, can get together rather than being spoken to separately?
Correct, yes. So we do fund mediation service as part of our antisocial behaviour offer. It's also important to recognise that from a mediation perspective, both parties need to be willing to engage in mediation. So it's not something we enforce on parties. It's strongly recommended, and it's one of the tools that we use before we progress through various other activities.
And if I have any of these cases, who's the main person to go to? You?
So what I can do is ensure that in minutes I'll circulate to Kaylee our contact details for our antisocial behaviour and community safety mailboxes with some narrative for the minutes. There's also a contact us form that you can direct constituents to, but you can also use yourself as a member on our website. So I'll circulate those links this evening for you.
Councillor Banks?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. The antisocial behaviour case review, the old community trigger, can you just confirm for me that that is the tool that members would use if they felt that things were protracted or the urgency or the point had been missed? Is that the process? It's the same? Yeah.
Yes, both members and residents can use that process. Yes.
Okay. And they would simply email or make contact and use that magic phrase, and it would set.
Absolutely. And what I can do to support Kaylee with the minutes is circulate some further narrative around the process and the procedure linked to that, if that's helpful to members, and the relevant mailboxes to direct that to. But if you do have any queries, then they can be directed to myself as AD for the service, or the head of service, Ollie Jackson for tenancy management, or Joshua Smith for safe communities. So I can circulate those details for members for you, but yes, they can be sent in through directly to the team.
Follow on Councillor Banks, then Councillor Stevens.
So just on that point, I think it'd be really useful if you could circulate those details. But Chair, I wonder if it would be appropriate for us to take an action point to refer this to the Member Development Steering Group, because I think the policy I think is great, and I have no issues with it at all. It's actually the procedure that we need to understand, and I think that would be really useful, not just for this committee but for all members.
If I may, Chair, just come back, a really good point, and just to confirm that further discussions have been held actually with the portfolio holder today to confirm that we will be setting up those sessions, an all-encompassing session around community safety, safeguarding, which will also touch on antisocial behaviour. There's a lot of changing legislation within those frameworks, and there's also a lot of terminology that may not be understood. So I think it'd be really useful for us to introduce you to the team, but also kind of outline to you the workings of the activity. It's quite varied. It touches on a number of service areas, as I'm sure members will know, strays into areas of activity in relation to regulatory services delivered by our environmental health and regulatory community protection team, but also our clean, safe and green team. So it's quite a broad area of activity and draws on a number of powers, but very happy to schedule a session. We're waiting for release of dates from member support.
And Councillor Stephens.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report and the policy coming through here. But for us newbies, I think you might have anticipated a question that I was going to make. Perhaps you could explain to me what community trigger requests meeting the threshold means. And I think you're probably going to touch on that when we do the training.
Good question. So you put me on the spot there because I'm not I certainly am not the owner and the author of the report, so it's not my specialist area, so I'll do my best. But ultimately, we have a specific threshold where an antisocial behaviour issue or a nuisance issue is having a significant impact on a community, and there are certain parameters that the community need to identify to us that issue reaches a threshold for them to raise a trigger or an ASB review, which requires that focused intervention and review of that situation. If I may share, we've stepped off an awful lot of activity in relation to the review of our community safety partnership framework. So we have several internal governance frameworks that pull in all of our external key partners such as care services, mental health services, police, and your statutory responders such as fire. So where we're aware of issues that are arising, there are targeted actions that are undertaken by task and finish groups. So we have a community safety action group, which meets at that operational level to review ongoing cases, both in relation of people-based nuisance, but locality-based nuisance, so within specific areas of your neighbourhoods. There's a joint action group, which is your manager level and is attended by your local chief inspector and key members of our safe and neighbourhood teams and key DBC officers to escalate any key issues that are continuing to become a prevalent issue. And where there are serious escalations that are needed, those are escalated through to our community safety partnership group. That's headed up by our Chief Executive, Claire Hamilton, with myself as Senior Officer, supported with other representatives of our key CRT teams that are dealing with enforcement-based action. So that is where we would engage with our statutory services to bring about key actions that may be needed. So most recent discussions relate to challenges around police resourcing in certain localities where we're experiencing nuisance and antisocial behaviour. And that enables us through those forums to push and advocate for additional resourcing that may require lobbying through the OPCC, the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, or through elected members and other forums. So there is a good governance structure in place to monitor and manage that, reported through to a quarterly community safety board, which is attended by our portfolio holder for housing and property services. And then additionally, I am currently working with our corporate leadership team members to develop an internal DBC-focused locality problem-solving framework to ensure that where there are issues that cross multiple service areas, we're capturing those within that governance framework.
Thank you.
I have Councillor Smith-Wright and then Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much for this report. It's an obvious question. Could you just give me a rough idea of antisocial behaviour? A few examples. What are the antisocial behaviours we're talking about?
Few and many. So I can tell you what it isn't. It isn't a complaint about a hedge or a messy garden, for example. That's a tenancy enforcement matter. Antisocial behaviour could be serious noise perpetrated by an animal, perpetrated by domestic abuse. Parenting challenges in a home could be antisocial behaviour, but could also be other matters such as safeguarding, hate crime. Domestic abuse, so noise perpetrated as a result of domestic abuse causes nuisance and antisocial behaviour. It's wide-ranging. It could be antisocial behaviour caused as a result of mental health difficulties, which will see us work really closely with other partner organisations. It's a very complex and multifaceted area of activity. We get hundreds of reports daily. For example, this morning we had over 150 reports of antisocial behaviour before we'd reached midday. There's significant cases that our officers are triaging on a daily basis that requires work on a number of levels across a number of services, both internally and externally. So anything that causes nuisance, harassment, alarm or distress is likely to fall into the realms of antisocial behaviour, and then the more serious facets such as hate crime and counter-terrorism activity will come into those kind of more serious crime and disorder areas of the asset.
And has hate crime, has it grown recently?
I think what has grown is the awareness of what hate crime is and how to report that, and the support services that are available. So we do get increased reports around hate crime, and we are working with our police colleagues in relation to counter-terrorism and hate crime activity. So we have a specific reporting tool within our service called Operation Ideogram. That's an area of intervention that is used by our officers to report hate graffiti or extremist graffiti, and so we work closely with the counter-terrorism team. Our officers out and about in the community who may be undertaking activities such as cleaning or grounds maintenance activity will mark and tag graffiti, and that will be reported through to our police and counter-terrorism colleagues before that is then deep cleaned and then monitored through a number of forums to ensure that we can identify wherever possible perpetrators.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Just a question on antisocial behaviour. So if you have a a resident who is renting a property, but it's a private rented property, and they are causing antisocial behaviour, what's the best policy? What's the step to do for the other residents within the community that have got the complaints for it?
So first and foremost, it's a complaint to the landlord, if that's a residential landlord. So, for example, a local registered provider, they would be the first point of call in relation to any antisocial behaviour issue, but also through to our community safety team. So we work closely with registered provider colleagues to manage instances of antisocial behaviour. They also form part of that governance framework that I just mentioned. So where we feel that registered providers aren't taking the appropriate action using the tools and powers that they have available to them, we're able to expedite actions through those frameworks. If it's a private rented tenancy or an owner occupied tenancy, that would come directly through to us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Councillor Wilson.
Just following up on actually Councillor Pesh's initial question about mediation. How successful is it? I'm aware mediation arts involved with the council, and certainly 18 months ago they were enjoying quite a successful run. But I'm just wondering if, given the numbers that you're talking about, whether that's still possible, frankly.
It's mixed, if I'm honest, and obviously antisocial behaviours I've just touched on can be, it's very varied, and we have some low levels of antisocial behaviour that is often caused by perception and misunderstanding, and so in those situations it's more easy to get individuals in a room to talk through the challenges that they're experiencing, and sometimes that is just about compromise and communication, and we're able to work through to a solution, but not necessarily as successful in your more serious cases, and you certainly wouldn't look to use mediation when you have serious instances where people are at risk. That would not be appropriate. But where I think we find that mediation is really successful, so we don't just use it in antisocial behaviour, relationship breakdowns, where we have individuals who've been excluded from a family home, so we use mediation to reconcile those family relationships and prevent impacts for tenancies being sustained and such like, but they're also very useful when you're trying to reach agreements about family separations and such like. So it is a very well utilised service across our housing service, which is why it's one of the service areas that is core funded.
Good to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you. Take the item as noted. Agenda item 12, the local connections policy. Over to David.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just introduce first of all my colleague Vicky Slawson, who designed this policy for us, so will help with any questions. Really, we've come to you tonight to present this local connections policy for approval. The aim of the policy is to ensure that any affordable housing in Dacorum that is not required to be let through our housing register is prioritised for eligible households with a local connection. So it sets out the local connection criteria, but it's also drafted to include essential and key worker criteria. So for example, there could be a key worker that has, that's employed in the borough but doesn't have a local connection. This policy allows them to access the housing. Subject to your approval, we'd like to take it to Cabinet in May, and it would sit alongside our colleagues in the planning department who are also bringing forward an affordable housing supplementary planning document. And that planning document will help to enact this policy through their planning policy, if that makes sense. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this document? No. Councillor Stevens?
Could I just comment on it? Thank you for the report, and thank you for modifying the criteria, because key workers coming into the area are absolutely critical to us. Having been chair of governors at a senior school here, trying to recruit staff to come south is almost impossible. We make the job offer, they look at the housing and say, can't afford it, won't come. So having the ability to be able to offer them an affordable home as a key worker is going to be pretty critical to help us maintain the services that we need.
Their approval for this to go to Cabinet.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. This takes to agenda item 13, the mutual exchange policy.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So included in your pack is the current mutual exchange policy. That policy is up to be reviewed. Wanted to raise a proposed change to that policy. So the current approach to mutual exchanges here at Dacorum allows for households to move to a property with an extra bedroom than their. This approach does not align with our housing allocations policy, where a household is assessed, determined on a number of factors about how big the property they require is. We propose to remove that automatic additional bedroom for anyone mutual exchanging to help us to effectively make best use of our current housing stock at a time when we continue to face significant demand for social housing. There are also financial implications involved in tenants being able to mutual exchange to a larger property. Those that are deemed to be under occupying a property are subject to the bedroom tax. So should they be in receipt of housing benefit or universal credit, there's an element of that that won't cover the full rent of a property should they be under occupying it. And we do find that managing under occupation is an effective way of us to tackle rent arrears building up. So the proposal is to remove the automatic additional bedroom for anyone mutual exchanging. It's important to note that underlying that, though, we will be including within the revised policy an approach where an additional bedroom will still be considered in certain circumstances, and that will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. We have consulted with Tenants and Leaseholders Committee and with other teams within the council. We're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Councillor Adluki.
The changes that you are proposing, is that within the government guidelines? That is the first question. And the second question is, how does this policy compare with other local authorities?
So in preparation for this proposed change, we...
In terms of fairness.
Thank you. So in preparation for this, we carried out a benchmarking exercise looking at other providers, both locally and nationally. And first and foremost, it is within our remit to decide whether or not we allow this additional bedroom. It falls within the legislative framework for us to be able to offer the bedroom or not. So it is within our gift, if you like, to remove that additional automatic bedroom option.
Councillor Banks.
Just briefly, generally, I'm along with the Conservative Group, we are in support of this revision. Where, under your recommendations, you've got here that there may be exceptional circumstances where there may be the additional bedroom. I'm assuming perhaps that might be, I don't know, a sort of a two-adult household, and perhaps one of them has some complicated medical need, for example, that sort of scenario. Is that the sort of
That would be a really good example where we'd look at that case individually and make a decision on that. So yeah, where there's a medical or a welfare need.
So again, perhaps a person with disability who needs a 24-hour carer, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Would it be possible that there could be some illustrations included within that paragraph to make it clear going forward that is the sort of circumstance we have in mind?
Yeah, yes.
I know it can't be a definitive list but they are the two sort of main circumstances that come to mind, and I just think it would make the document more living if it had some example in it instead of just a hidden exception. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments on the side?
Just, it's a quick question, but I think I know the answer already, given an earlier answer. Presumably this will be publicised again to all of our tenants so that they're under no illusions as to what's now involved in terms of this sort of exchange.
Yes, certainly there'll be a number of channels we'd communicate with tenants on to make them aware of the change in policy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think that's, approved. I don't know if that was the purpose, so just to provide feedback, but approved.
Yeah.
Which just, thank you, officers, just takes us to the forward plan, which is when we'll be meeting again in June. Blimey. So that's just the Q1 reports mainly, but it is quite a big one. So we've got the sports and leisure, consumer standard self-assessment, tenancy strategy. Obviously, things may change within those months, but we will keep people informed. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. Oh, did you have something?
Q4 reports? You just say Q1.
Sorry, it is Q4.
It is
no,
Q4.
it is Q4 as well.
Yeah, sorry,
It's
so I was
Q4.
just reading off the sheet. Yeah, it is Q4.
It is.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's the end of the meeting, 2025. Thank you. Have a good evening.